The term nuclear umbrella is a metaphor designed to make the idea of U.S. extended deterrence, or nuclear extended deterrence, easier to understand. It suggests protection, like an umbrella shielding someone, but it does not mean the U.S. operates a physical defense system like an actual umbrella. Instead, the concept refers to the United States extending its own nuclear deterrence to its allies. In other words, if an ally is attacked with nuclear weapons, the U.S. promises to treat it as an attack on itself and retaliate with nuclear weapons. The term nuclear umbrella simply visualizes this concept. To make clear that nuclear use is included, recent documents also use the terms extended nuclear deterrence or nuclear extended deterrence, which refer to the same idea.
The United States says it provides a nuclear umbrella to all its allies. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, which has long faced the nuclear forces of the Soviet Union and now Russia, was built around this U.S. nuclear guarantee. After the Cold War, the U.S. withdrew most of its forward-deployed nuclear weapons around the world, but kept about 100 in NATO countries to maintain the nuclear umbrella. The U.S. and NATO also hold regular nuclear retaliation exercises with Allied aircraft under the name Steadfast Noon.
Because the U.S. and South Korea signed an alliance treaty in 1953, the United States has provided a nuclear umbrella to South Korea since the Cold War and stated this clearly in official documents. Since 1968, the two countries have held an annual Security Consultative Meeting, SCM, between their defense ministers, always issuing a joint statement afterward. Starting in 1978, these statements explicitly stated that the U.S. would provide a nuclear umbrella.
As North Korea's nuclear threat grew, the nuclear umbrella language in SCM statements became more detailed. Before, they simply used the term nuclear umbrella, but the SCM statement issued after North Korea's second nuclear test in 2009 said the U.S. would provide extended deterrence, including the U.S. nuclear umbrella, conventional strike, and missile defense capabilities. This could be viewed as strengthening the nuclear umbrella by adding non-nuclear forces, or as reducing the likelihood of an actual nuclear response. It can be interpreted both ways.
The term nuclear umbrella, however, appeared only through the 2018 SCM statement. After that, it stopped being used in joint statements. The substitute term, nuclear capabilities, clearly carries the same meaning, but it can also sound less binding than nuclear umbrella. Under South Korea's progressive government, combined with the Trump administration's lower sense of urgency about North Korea's nuclear threat, the nuclear umbrella language in SCM statements has become shorter and vaguer, increasing anxiety. The 2024 SCM statement stated that the U.S. would provide the full range of U.S. defense capabilities, including nuclear, conventional, missile defense, and advanced non-nuclear capabilities. But the 2025 statement shortened this to simply the full range of U.S. defense capabilities, including nuclear capabilities. As North Korea's nuclear threat grew, the two countries created and expanded several consultation mechanisms to discuss how to implement the nuclear umbrella. In 2015, their defense ministries created the Deterrence Strategy Committee. In 2016, they formed the Extended Deterrence Strategy and Consultation Group, so that both the foreign and defense ministries could participate. And in 2023, they established the Nuclear Consultative Group, involving both presidential offices. However, these groups have been created or most active under conservative governments in South Korea and have tended to shrink or go dormant under progressive administrations. No matter how clearly the U.S. promises the nuclear umbrella, and no matter how many consultation bodies exist, no one can guarantee that it will actually be carried out in a crisis. If the U.S. retaliates with nuclear weapons against North Korea, that would mean a full-scale nuclear war, and North Korea might strike the U.S. mainland in return. Such a conflict could even escalate into a nuclear war with Russia and/or China. In the end, whether the nuclear umbrella is actually implemented would depend entirely on the U.S. president's decision at that moment. And no one, not even the current U.S. president, can predict what that decision would be. Because the U.S. has overwhelming nuclear power, North Korea clearly fears the U.S. nuclear umbrella more than anything. This is why North Korea constantly demands the withdrawal of the U.S. nuclear umbrella. In fact, their call for the denuclearization of the Korean peninsula primarily means removing that umbrella. From North Korea's point of view, once the U.S. nuclear umbrella disappears, it would be much easier to threaten, attack, or control South Korea. For this reason, South Korea needs the nuclear umbrella more than ever.
Since President Trump entered office, doubt about the U.S. nuclear umbrella has increased in South Korea. As a result, some politicians and intellectuals have repeatedly argued that South Korea should develop its own nuclear weapons, and many South Koreans agree. But producing nuclear weapons would require reprocessing spent nuclear fuel to extract plutonium or enriching uranium to high levels. South Korea currently does not have these capabilities, and it would need to revise its nuclear agreement with the United States to obtain them. For non-proliferation reasons, the U.S. does not permit this. This leaves South Korea in a frustrating position. Even though confidence in the nuclear umbrella has weakened, it has no practical option but to continue relying on the nuclear umbrella.
For more analysis on this topic, see the Chapter 6 of the author's book, Nuclear North Korea: Challenge to Deterrence Theories and Policies, Uncomfortable Truths.
If you'd like to hear more related content, please click the subscribe button.